The loud knock came just after sunrise, breaking the peaceful silence that had settled over the small neighborhood. Owen Mercer, a 38-year-old single father, froze with a coffee mug still in his hand while his 9-year-old son, Caleb, looked toward the front door with sleepy eyes. Nothing about that morning felt unusual until Owen opened the door and found his neighbor's 26-year-old daughter, Maren Holloway, standing on the porch with tear-filled eyes, a small travel bag in one hand, and a look of desperate determination on her face. Before Owen could understand why she had come, she quietly looked into his eyes and, with trembling courage, silently revealed through a handwritten note that she needed a husband before the sun went down. In that single moment, Owen felt as though the ground beneath his feet had disappeared, because nothing in his difficult life had prepared him for such an unexpected request. If stories about kindness, hope, and second chances inspire you, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise. Your support helps these heartfelt stories reach more people who still believe compassion can change lives. Owen had been raising Caleb alone for nearly 6 years after losing his wife, Nora, to a sudden illness. Since then, every day had become a careful balance between construction work, school lunches, unpaid bills, bedtime stories, and silent moments where he wondered whether he was doing enough. He had learned to repair broken walls, leaking roofs, and worn-out furniture, but no amount of hard work had taught him how to repair loneliness. The small blue house they lived in carried both beautiful memories and painful reminders, yet Owen refused to leave because it was the last place where his family had once laughed together. Across the street lived the Holloway family, quiet people who mostly kept to themselves. Maren had always been polite, greeting neighbors with gentle smiles, but few people knew much about the burdens she carried behind those smiles. As Owen welcomed her inside, he noticed she appeared exhausted from many sleepless nights. She handed him several folded documents explaining everything. Her father had become seriously ill, and during his treatment, distant relatives had begun fighting over the family's farmland and home. According to a complicated legal agreement created years earlier, the property would remain protected only if Maren entered a legal marriage before certain paperwork expired that very evening. She had no romantic relationship, no fiancé, and no one she trusted enough to ask for such an enormous favor. She had watched Owen care for his son with patience and honesty for years, and despite knowing how unusual her request sounded, she believed he was the only person whose kindness would never take advantage of her desperation. Owen felt his heart become heavier with every page he read. Marriage was not a game or a contract to be signed out of panic. It represented promises, trust, and responsibility. He worried about Caleb, about what neighbors would think, and about whether helping Maren would create even greater complications. Yet as he looked at her tired face, he recognized the same helplessness he had once felt standing beside a hospital bed with no way to save the woman he loved. Sometimes people did not need miracles. Sometimes they simply needed someone willing to stand beside them when everyone else walked away. The day unfolded with quiet urgency. Owen spoke with an attorney, who carefully explained that the arrangement could remain respectful and transparent, protecting everyone's rights without forcing expectations beyond mutual agreement. Caleb, despite being young, sensed the seriousness surrounding the adults. Instead of asking endless questions, he simply walked into the living room carrying his favorite blanket and gently placed it around Maren's shoulders. That small act of kindness broke the walls around her heart, and tears rolled down her cheeks for the first time in months. She realized that the warmth she had been searching for had never been about legal documents. It was about finding people who genuinely cared whether she smiled again. By afternoon, word had spread through the neighborhood. Some whispered cruel assumptions without knowing the truth. Others judged Owen for becoming involved in another family's problems. But a few neighbors surprised everyone by stepping forward with encouragement. One elderly widow offered flowers. Another neighbor watched Caleb while Owen handled paperwork. A retired teacher volunteered to prepare dinner for everyone that evening. What began as one woman's desperate request slowly transformed into an entire community rediscovering the forgotten value of standing together during difficult times. When the legal process was completed before sunset, nothing looked like the dramatic endings people expected from romantic movies. There were no grand celebrations, expensive ceremonies, or perfect speeches. There was only quiet relief, grateful smiles, and the comforting feeling that no one had been left alone. Over the following weeks, Owen and Maren slowly built an honest friendship based on respect rather than obligation. She helped Caleb with school projects, while Owen repaired the old farmhouse her father had spent decades building. Trust grew naturally, one ordinary day at a time, proving that genuine relationships rarely begin with perfection. They begin with compassion. Months later, Marin's father recovered enough to return home. Watching Owen and Caleb laughing together in the backyard with his daughter beside them filled him with peace he had not felt in years. He realized that while illness had nearly stolen everything from his family, kindness had quietly returned something far greater than property. It had given them hope. Owen also discovered that the emptiness inside his own heart had begun to heal, not because someone replaced the love he once lost, but because opening his heart again had reminded him that love is never limited to one chapter of life. The greatest lesson from that extraordinary day was not about marriage at all. It was about courage. It was about choosing compassion when fear seemed easier. It was about believing that strangers can become family through simple acts of goodness. Every person carries invisible battles, and sometimes the smallest decision to help another person changes many lives forever. Owen never expected a knock on his door to rewrite his future, but looking back, he understood that the most meaningful blessings often arrive disguised as impossible requests. If this story touched your heart, please write, "Kindness still wins," in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and know where you're watching from. And if this story inspired you even a little, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave your heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise. Together, we can spread more stories of hope, compassion, and second chances to people who need them most. As the warm afternoon sunlight stretched across the quiet neighborhood, Owen, Caleb, and Marin stood together on the front porch, not because life had suddenly become perfect, but because they had discovered something even more valuable. Families are not always born, sometimes they are built through courage, kindness, and the simple decision to answer someone's knock with an open heart. And on that ordinary daytime morning, one impossible request became the beginning of a future none of them had ever imagined.